No.
Yes. Right.
So you guys need an alignment, not coaching.
The coaching industry has exploded.
We want to be better. We want to move forward and keep growing.
Uncoachable is going to be released bi-weekly with a new coach, a new idea, a new approach, and a new takeaway. Hi, I'm Jon.
I'm Rhys, and he's Uncoachable. Hello and welcome to Uncoachable. This is Rhys.
And this is Jon Burns.
And today we are joined by Susan Power. Susan, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we always like to start an episode where we give you the opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit about yourselves, share with the audience your background. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I operate a business in Halifax called Power Up Leadership. We've been in business for 7 years, and we really focus on upskilling leadership effectiveness. My background is 20 years in human resources. I had a business in St. John's, Newfoundland. I sold in 2016. And my observation with corporates is leadership is often lacking, at least good leadership. They have leadership, but it's sometimes quite demotivating for employees. So that's what prompted me to really specialize in supporting leaders to show up better.
Oh, great. And so did you sold the business and now you're back into entrepreneurship, or what? Tell us a little about you, because you are an entrepreneur as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Hire Talent, we were more on the HR consulting side. My kids were really young when I had that business, which I really liked for the flexibility. But it did grow, and I sold it, and I went back to corporate because I wanted to get some more leadership experience myself, because our team was pretty small. It was me and one other person at Hire Talent. And it's hard going back. I think I worked for the Irving family for 2 years, and I really missed entrepreneurship. So came to Halifax 7 years ago and started up Power Up Leadership.
Oh, cool. So we've had lots of different coaches on here and people with different coaching experiences. So how obviously this show's Uncoachable. How do you feel about the coaching industry? Do you kind of feel like there's good points, bad points?
All the above. Yeah. I mean, anyone can call themselves a coach, right? It's an unregulated profession, which is different than therapists or many other professions. But there are standards. All the coaches at my company are certified through International Coaching Federation. So what I love about coaching is it can be life-changing. I've had that experience with the coaches I work with. What I hate about coaching is the quality can be very variable, and it gives sometimes coaches a bad name.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we looked into your background as well, right? Trying to figure out your journey to get to where you are. And you've got a lot of lived experience, a lot of variety of jobs and positions, education as well, and certification. That's usually our first step, because it is difficult to validate who a good coach is, or who a good leadership coach is. I think I even came across one of your articles on you suggesting on what are the best ways to actually find a good coach as well. Yeah. So I don't know if you've got some good tips you can share with us on how do you find a good coach?
Yeah, it's a good question. The first thing I always think of is ask the person you're interviewing, essentially, do you have a coach?
Oh, okay.
Because if the coach isn't working with the coach, to me, that's a huge red flag.
Oh, really? Okay. So you feel like that's like a constant thing you need. So you currently have a coach too?
I do. I have multiple coaches. But the reason I think it's important is because if they don't think they have areas to improve and they're not learning from other coaches, what value are they going to add to their clients?
Interesting.
They're like, I've peaked. Yeah. I don't need any more help. But you do.
I was talking to a lady the other day, and she kind of was like, I think I'm beyond support for leadership development. I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. Tell me a little bit about your background. 20 years experience. Basically, I have it figured out. And, I'm like, well, the top CEOs in the world work with multiple coaches. How have you capped yourself out on development, And I think maybe I was too blunt when I said that to her, but it's no.
I like blunt. I mean, blunt is wonderful, right? It articulates exactly what you're thinking. But I like that idea that we're not done learning. There's a continuous learning process, which means that's why you still continue. You have a coach as a coach kind of thing, right?
100%. Yeah.
And as well, I suppose, things must change in the industry as well. There must be new things happening and new developments, new strategies, or is that also part of it? Do you have to kind of really stay on top of new techniques or things like that?
I think so. I personally really love to read. So I'm always reading, and I'm trying to read some stuff that's not just leadership development and like some stuff that's completely left field, just because I can go pretty hard on this. I just love the topic. Podcasts, of course, but like constantly, every day we should all be learning, just so we can add value to the
I think I'm full.
lives.
I think I'm done.
You're just,
You're just tired.
Yeah,
You're not full, you're just tired.
You're right. I could just be tired. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why it was nice to have you on the podcast, because you're an entrepreneur as well, and you understand not the tired piece, because there's a wonderful balance between large organizations working for other people and then being an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
And it's a different sort of mindset to be able to go from a large business, large organization, and then go into entrepreneurship where failure sits heavy on your shoulders, but also so does success, right? You've
True.
got that wonderful balance, right?
yeah, different environment, 100%, right? Things move a lot more slowly. It's like moving the Titanic in these corporations sometimes to get a decision made versus entrepreneur. Like you can decide that day to change direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I left a large organization when somebody told me they felt like their job was rearranging the chairs on the Titanic as the ship was going around. It was futile, right? Yeah.
But I suppose as well, like we everyone has a bad boss story or a bad boss experience, and I suppose in those larger organizations, how do you kind of like help people develop and grow their skills? Sometimes people can hide in larger organizations or fall between the cracks. So was that like something that with your HR company experience, I guess, were you kind of like coming across there on a regular basis and helping those people develop?
Yeah, I think so. People love to tell me, like to this day, their bad boss stories, right? Like when I ask them, tell me about the best boss you ever worked for, 9 out of 10 times they're like, let me tell you about the worst boss, because that's what comes to mind. And I think there's a lot to be learned from those experiences too. So we've got pulled into, like at the extreme end of it, workplace investigation. Sometimes we do that type of work as well, which is, things really go off the rails, like harassment, like et cetera. So that's a whole other kettle of fish. But I think, there's a lot to be learned by what leaders do well and where they can improve. And it kind of starts with looking inward.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we talked about before the interview was reluctant leadership and entrepreneurship. A lot of entrepreneurs. And that was one of the things that really resonated is that I feel like, Jon, you've got more leadership experience than me, but my background as more of a freelance, kind of creative, and would string teams together temporarily and then we'd all go on our way. But they were all very independent-minded creatives too. And the idea of being a leader and developing those leadership skills, I can imagine for a lot of entrepreneurs is bumpy because that's not necessarily why you launch a business in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. Was there something you were going to add?
Yeah, no, I wanted to get back to the bad bosses story.
Oh, sorry.
but
I was going to say it creates bad bosses then, though.
It's the same idea. Before we get into the entrepreneurship, we've been talking about people that get into leadership roles. And often they're not getting into the leadership roles because they have leadership experience, but they've qualified themselves doing something else. And then they get into a leadership role and it's like, now I need to learn. Which gets into your notion of the continuous learning. So I'm curious, what are your first steps on trying to identify who could be a good leader? And if you have a bad leader, bad boss, can you change them? And what do you do to change them?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I think of technical experts, engineers, IT, like they're really good at doing the work. All of a sudden they get promoted. It's a different skill set leading a team. And we all have to learn it when we're new to it. That sometimes there are natural leaders, but most people do need to learn that. If they have the motivation and kind of the desire to lead people, I think it can be learned. And with some support, it can go more quickly. If they are reluctant in the sense of, people are really not pleasant to work with. I'd rather just have my head in data all day and they just don't have the desire. That makes it a lot more difficult. So I think it starts with assessing, do they want to be leading a team? And if not, can we spark that? And like some people, you can't. Maybe that's the uncoachable kind of side of it. But just if they don't want to do it, you can't like push them.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking about team building, right? So if you're starting with changing the leader, I suppose you wouldn't change the team, but you're trying to change the leader to a degree. So you've risen to a position of leadership. Are you looking at things like psychological tests, any like a Myers-Briggs or something of that nature that allows you to build better teams, more diverse teams? I don't know, something of that.
Yeah, we use a number of different assessments depending on the job level of the leader and kind of what their sticking points are. So one of my favorites is DISC. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a communications assessment.
Okay.
So we do this a lot with teams where they get to figure out their preferred communication style.
Interesting. Yeah.
So influencer, dominant, conscientiousness, steadiness.
Dad jokes, that's mine.
Yeah. Well, you lead with humor.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, my guess would be you would be an influencer, would be my
Really?
guess. Yeah,
That sounds
that's my
terrifying.
guess. I don't know, John. I haven't talked to Jonathan as much. Yes, I don't know yet
Right?
for you.
Yeah. I'm not wearing the same T-shirt as you. That's probably why.
What does your T-shirt say?
It says, that's going nowhere. That's not going anywhere, sorry. I can't read upside down. One thing I was going to say was when you talk about like really technical departments, like an IT department, like the idea of a leader in that team, of someone who's kind of come up through the IT department and proven those skills, understands intrinsically what that team does on a technical level, which might be super specialist, versus bringing someone in who has leadership skills but very vague leadership, very vague skills in the sense of the IT side of things. My experience is that the people who kind of bubble up, if they can be developed well, like it's so much better for them to lead because they understand the pain points for a lot of the people.
They can relate to the technical side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're someone who's come in and gone, right, now you're managing this department and you don't understand all those technical pain points, that's got to be such a tough learning curve. So I can see there's like huge value in identifying those people and developing them out of those areas.
I think you're right. And it's always better to promote from within as well, just good for morale and culture. So I agree with you. I mean, there's benefits to both sides too, but you have that credibility if you understand the details. Yeah.
That's talking to someone who geeks out on like post-production stuff. So my experience is that when you've had someone who's like been there and done it and then gone on, it's way smoother to kind of like understand. Like you don't have to explain. There's a over communication then of why decisions are made and why people are struggling. So the people might be like, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's weird because I contrast with that. I agree with you. The credibility is crucial. So you think about player coaches. So I played the game and now then I can coach it. And a lot of the times it doesn't necessarily translate. So I get the credibility because I know that job, but the leader typically has a different job to do. They're not in that scenario being a programmer. Yeah. They're actually a people leader in that scenario. And so it's a different skill set. And you can go to the market and find people leaders. And one of the things I was reading about for you, you help organizations like entrepreneurs, small businesses that are in hyper growth. And I assume that typically you are in an innovative space. There's people that haven't done maybe that kind of job before. So you're looking for externals to bring in to be able to bring new skills and new capabilities. But I'm trying to think of from a leadership standpoint, hiring and promoting from within in a hyper-growth organization isn't always an option.
There might not be anybody there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because what got you here might not get you there, right? Especially if it's, like you say, hyper-growth, scaling really quickly. And I think that's really difficult as well. Like I think of the example of a CEO of a hyper-growth company, and they've worked side by side with this kind of tightly knit group, and then all of a sudden they have to fire one of their friends and team members, right? That's a really, really hard decision to make. But if they're working with a coach, sometimes they can help support them to realize, well, it's better for the company and the team, and probably better for that person too to exit if they're not really scaling with the company as well. So I think of those hard decisions too. Yeah.
So do you have what are your suggestions on making leaders better? That's a real broad question.
Yeah. Well,
I can't start there.
I mean, definitely.
It's the $1 million question.
I mean, it is a $1 million question, really. And I think what comes to mind is it's about self-awareness. So I think we're all on this journey to build our self-awareness. And when you work with a coach, for instance, they ask you questions that help you have new insights and try new things that might be out of your comfort zone that you haven't tried before. So interestingly, have you ever read Insight by Tasha Eurich? Her name is?
I'll disclaimer. I'm unable to read any business books. John suggested so many great books that I'm sure are wonderful. I just can't get through the introduction.
Well, you can listen to the Audible version of it. Maybe. She's a self-awareness researcher, right? And interestingly, 95% of people think they are highly self-aware, but her research shows that it's really between 10 to 25%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So we all have blind spots and opportunities to improve our self-awareness. And
Hence
I think
cringe.
hence cringe. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And it's funny to watch, like, as in my line of work, I get brought into teams I've never met before. And I might be observing a senior management team interacting and talking, and you're trying to figure out the relationship dynamics and read the body language. And you start to pick it up pretty fast, like when you've been to enough of these, the vibe of the room. And it's always like it's a little puzzle to solve of, well, how can we build the trust and really figure out what's going on here, like the unspoken.
Yeah. I suppose that, there's the unspoken and the unsaid. Like sometimes you can, even the way that who comes in the room, in what order, and where do they sit, those kind of things tell a lot.
And the energy shifts if someone comes in, and do people stop talking? They're talking before a certain leader comes in. And it's really like a trust building thing, because I think this is the problem with many organizations. People don't trust leadership to start with, and often leadership doesn't trust each other. And coming in and helping to build that, it doesn't happen like that.
You're right. A lot of it is that common goal, common purpose, and where we're going. And if you're sort of united on that messaging, I think it's a little bit easier. But if you're in contrast, your teams and your people, you create a little bit of conflict. But there was a quote that I was thinking about that talked about leaders speak last.
Yeah.
Which is that notion that as soon as a leader puts forward an opinion, everyone else either deflects or doesn't then have the courage to then present their opposing views. And so you actually don't get a good dialogue and thinking around that. So I like that idea when you talk about the tradition of walking into a room or who sits down or whatever, and to challenge that and to make sure that we have sort of a balanced or a flat organization, not necessarily a leader and a doer, but you actually have just people in an organization that have a common goal.
I agree with that. And just building on that, not only do leaders speak last, but I think they recognize that the team is exceptionally smart and they don't need all the airtime, because they want to hear, like, very genuinely the ideas of everyone, and their decision might not be made. Like, they might not know what they're going to say last, right? Because they really want to consider everyone's point of view.
Yeah. I had a friend that had said that just hire really talented people and then get out of their way. And it's much more difficult to do than you realize, because trying to figure out who's really talented and what is the job that they're doing. But I like that notion, which is not that leaders don't need to micromanage or control or do much more than we had another coach that was talking about managing individuals instead of leading individuals, and I was challenged by that notion, because I think a lot of the times it is leadership or silent leadership or direction that we're trying to help organizations to get in and through hypergrowth into a sustained business, I think.
When you said about leaders talking last and let everybody else talk, I know there are plenty of people who would be afraid to talk and offer opinion before their boss lets them.
But that's back to that the horrible boss story.
Like, I'm going to wait for what our line is on this, and then I'll give an opinion.
And I suspect you've got a bunch of horrible bosses. That notion, which is I'm going to put together here's my opinion, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I remember doing a 360 assessment review one day, which is where the leader gets feedback from their direct reports, their peers, their boss.
Anonymous, of course.
And exactly. And this leader scored very low on caring, was one of the leadership dimensions. They were 10 percentile.
Oh, wow.
Compared to the benchmarks around the world. So I thought they might want some support with this. And when I brought it up,
care.
Exactly. He's like, I really don't want coaching on that, Susan. And I'm like, but you have a team, you have 10 people. Like, don't you think this opportunity? He's like, no, I don't care that I don't care, right? I'm like, I had to really press this with him. But I'm like, well, if he really doesn't care, like, I can't change that overnight.
But that's contagious. Everybody else won't care either. And if you don't care about the job you're doing, you're not going to have passion and energy and enthusiasm for the job.
Well, he
right?
did care about the job. It was more about the people.
Oh, right.
Building that, like, rapport and understanding their lives outside of work.
Yeah. Just be working with robots. You'd be fine then.
Yeah, but there's wonderful studies that talk about happy employees are more productive employees, right? So if you can actually, I was reading something today that actually said encourage people to actually have lives outside of work, find pleasure and enjoyment, because then when you come into a workspace and if you arrive energetic, enthused, and happy, you do better.
I think so. Energy is contagious, right? Your vibe attracts your tribe, I believe. So it's really important to have a life outside of work. That was something that took me longer to learn because I was a workaholic for many years. But I know, like, when I have fun on the weekend, like I just joined beach volleyball, just started like this weekend, I show up to work differently. Like I can feel it.
Yeah. It is. We've talked about there's a generational shift. There seemed to be, it used to be work-life balance. It was either or. I've got a lot of work and I've got a little life, or vice versa. There was a couple of people talking about work-life harmony. So the two actually sort of blend together instead of trying to offset one another.
Yeah, I didn't really find that until I had kids. And I was kind of like, well, I have to step away from work because I'm responsible for these little humans now. And because before my hobby was my job, I loved just what I was doing. So, which wasn't good for my health necessarily, because you can't do, so yeah, it is, finding that balance is really important, definitely.
I think so, yeah. And I mean, when I think about one thing that we really focus on at Power Up Leadership is creating inspired leaders. So we actually measure the number of leaders that go through our programs because we believe how they show up and communicate with their team and communicate the purpose and the why and get to know their people, like that's leadership, effective leadership. So we're trying to get to 1 million inspired leaders by 2033. And I think it's really about how they make the person feel by the end of the conversation. So if you talk to someone and you feel more drained by the end of the conversation, they're probably not a good leader. But ideally, they talk to you, you leave, and you feel like, okay, I'm ready to go now.
You've been enabled.
Yeah. And it just, you feel, I don't know, your motivation, even if you're internally motivated, I think they just kind of, that vibrational energy, this might sound a little woo-woo, but it goes up based on how they engage with you.
I know I leapt ahead to this earlier. Can we cover it now, or are you going to tell me off?
No, go right ahead.
So I was just talking about the reluctant leadership, which I think is something that we talk about a lot, I feel, which is why I feel it was good to...
It's one of the reasons why I think I'm uncoachable anyway, is that, like I said, in regards to an organization being flat, is that I find individuals... we hire really great people, and they're able to do their things really well and look for self-improvement and grow and development themselves. And so a lot of the times our job is to get out of their way and offer them tools and resources to be able to lift them in the direction that they're going. And so that the reluctant leadership is sort of on the edges of just sort of my philosophy in regards to a leadership and a workplace culture, I guess. You've got a different perspective because you've encountered a lot of horrible bosses where it's like, I'll do things differently.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what we wanted, was to create a culture that was very much informed by the negative experiences, and how we can change that and create a culture that is much more a place where we want to go to work happily and enthused, and that that is shared by everyone else in the space. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that kind of experience you've had with teaching those leadership skills.
Yeah, I mean, if I can respond first to the reluctant leader piece, I agree with hiring smart people and getting out of the way. When I think of leadership, I think it's fluid too, where the junior people on the team could be leading the CEO and vice versa, right? And it's not so based in job title or role, but it might be on project or topic. So I think it's like a shared responsibility of leadership is kind of how I think about it.
I love that idea, which it empowers everybody in the organization to be a leader.
Exactly. Yeah, depending on their strengths and kind of the topic at hand. And in terms of what you're talking about, what was your question?
Oh, sorry. No, it was about the work you're doing in terms of helping entrepreneurs develop those leadership skills. The idea of a reluctant leader, which we discussed. Just around those experiences and kind of how do you coach that?
Yeah, the example that comes to mind is trouble letting go, like when it's their baby, their business, and they want to be involved in every client conversation, every decision. Like that's what I think of when I think of reluctant leadership, just holding onto the reins so tightly. And with hyper-growth companies, like you can appreciate, you can't do that. You need the systems, you need the teams to take that ownership and accountability. So sometimes it's just a mindset shift of, well, how are you getting in the way of growth? How can you help the team move more quickly? And sometimes that self-awareness piece, they don't even realize they're the problem. Yeah. And often they are the problem.
I imagine you must coach people then on that transition, the entrepreneur that then has to hire the CEO. and step away from the control space, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is really scary for them because depending on their personality too, like a lot of entrepreneurs are type A, they're proud of what they've built and they think they can do it the best. So it takes a little bit of, I think, adjustment for them to let go and trust.
Well, no, definitely. And even you were talking about, so I as like we're doing the leading the creative side of things in the business, I like to get in the weeds sometimes on projects, and that's definitely been me letting go of that has been a real process.
Well, I think if you were to coach us, I think one of the benefits that we've had is that we've been forced to let go to each other, mainly because the other person will say, no, I can do this better, and then run away with it and do that job better. And as entrepreneurs, when we started, it was just the two of us, so we had to wear all the hats in the organization, and we would gravitate to our strengths and then sort of backfill with, no, you can do that better than I can, so why don't you take it and reluctantly do that job. And so Rhys and I have an unusual scenario where, as leaders, we are able to delegate other parts of the business to a partner, which is an advantage, I think, right?
Well, and I think that's, as the team's grown, then that's helped, because I feel like even like bringing people in who are we instantly recognize are better at things than us. Oh, it's like, well, why it's in our benefit to let go, is in their benefit to let go. So
it sounds like
I'm looking at them through the window.
It sounds like it's been kind of a fluid exercise for you as you, because if you're partners, I'm assuming you're partners in your business, it's even more complicated, right, than a solo entrepreneur with the team, because you want to stay aligned in your approach so the team doesn't get confused. And you seem like two very different individuals, probably different strengths, personalities is my guess, which complement, I'm guessing, each other.
We have no idea. I thought that's one of the reasons why we're here.
Yeah, because that's part of the Uncoachables thing for us, is that we are quite different personalities, but weirdly we align on so many things, and usually we don't argue.
Well, no, so I have a secret. I've actually, this podcast I think is brilliant, because I'm hoping that someone is going to coach Rhys.
And not you. You're uncoachable.
I'm not self-aware at all.
I feel exactly the same thing about you.
You raise a good question. So we disagree.
Yes.
Absolutely, as we're trying to navigate waters that we've never been in before. But it is respectful disagreement.
And open, transparent.
And no one at the end of this feels, at the end of a conversation or disagreement, feels
honestly,
bad.
I never feel like it's an argument. I always think that it's kind of a robust dialogue. That's right. But it's never insulting or belittling. Usually we end up like talking things through and disagreeing on stuff. But
did you start off that way?
Do you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, because we had earlier teams that probably would have said, we disagreed more than we do now.
Okay.
Yeah. So as we were navigating our own business relationship and business itself, there would have been disagreements and different thoughts, and we continue to do that as well, but under that structure of.
I think it's healthy.
Well, it's
you
passion.
Want that?
No, I don't want
it,
but I'm not afraid of. I don't want to argue with him every day, but I don't think it's unhealthy to have to work things out.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of it similar to a relationship outside of work, like a marriage or partnership, right? That if you're not having those open conversations, that's when there's a problem, right?
Exactly.
Because you just stop communicating, that the trust is completely broken down.
No, I agree 100%, which is why the fact we can have a dialogue about it and then you come to a conclusion from it is like, I think it's healthy. So there's no there's no simmering kind of we're not going to talk about. I'm not even going to bring that up with Jon, because we'll disagree on it. We usually just talk it through. We usually just talk it through and then have some kind of plan going forward. Usually my idea. So and
it probably makes it easier the more you have those conversations and go with your idea,
exactly.
Right?
We gather in the end.
Path of least resistance. All right, go ahead, Rhys. Do what you want to do.
But and that's the thing. I suppose you've probably got a lot of experience with entrepreneurs who have the people with a particular kind of perspective, and they're all very different kinds of people who move into entrepreneurship for different reasons. So them then fit in some notion of a leader.
Yes.
Can be bumpy, I guess.
I think so. And I think of too, the team sometimes has trouble opposing that entrepreneur or having those open discussions. This is what I hear a lot. Like if we're doing difficult conversations training, we do a lot in that space, that people just are really scared about having those difficult conversations. Like they think it's going to be what they call it, a limiting career move, or that they're going to damage the relationship permanently. And I think people just build these things up in their head. That's going to be a lot, because often what we hear is, oh, I had that conversation. It wasn't nearly as bad as what I thought it would be. It's like, okay, well, good. Have another one next week.
Exactly. I once worked for somebody and they were like, we're really proud of how candid we can be to each other. And everyone was afraid to talk about certain things. There was like a kind of a culture of silence. No, you don't talk about this. You don't talk about that. But the boss would always boast about how there was an open dialogue here, which was like a total, for them it was, but it wasn't for everybody else, which is so like, and like those kind of like false cultures I always kind of, I guess we try our best to not kind of create that environment where we're saying, this is our culture, this is what we've built, and then the team's going, like what just happened.
BS radar going off. Yeah,
I'm glad you raised that. So I haven't heard that acronym in ages. The career limiting move.
Yes.
The CLM, and it used to be quite ripe through organizations where you would stay silent, or you wouldn't do certain things, or in the opposite, where people did certain things and they realized I shouldn't have done that. You've got a strong history in HR in that space as well, I think, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I was trying to think of everything from a master's in philosophy, I think,
business,
and then an MBA,
a theater degree,
and a theater degree as well, and then years in the HR space to be able to see a variety of different things as teams were coming together, from recruitment, from retention, from satisfaction, and then into large organizations, small organizations. So you would have seen a lot of these kind of elements of, a career limiting move. I don't know if that's a legacy term, or does that still exist within organizations? And back to the bad bosses, are you coaching people on how to avoid career limiting moves, I guess?
Yeah, I think it still exists. Maybe the term isn't thrown around as often, but I think it comes down to values. And sometimes it's a misunderstanding. If someone does something and it contradicts someone else's values, they don't forget that, right? Like it can be really sticky situation. Like I had a friend where the employee stole from the entrepreneur when they were leaving. Like they took some of their clients and IP, and like obviously that was it's a reputational thing, right? Like, and some of those things happen internally within corporate as well. So I think it comes down to good leadership. Are you living your values? Do people trust you? I always say, watch my feet, not my lips. Like, the action speaks louder than words. So I think it's still relevant. People often don't bring it to coaching calls, though. They'll bring, how do I get promoted more quickly? Like, that's what I hear a lot. It's like, that's their concern. Yeah.
They just want you to help them get it as high and as fast as possible.
Often, at least in corporate, on the entrepreneurial side, it's often how do we scale more quickly? Yeah. How do we hang on to our best people? Like, there's fires that come up every day that can be quite different. So I guess it depends on the environment. But yeah, I don't know. Career limiting move. I think they exist.
Right.
Yeah.
You raised two things there that I'm really interested in. One is I'm not looking for my next promotion. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know what that looks like. It's probably an exit, which you've done as well. But you did mention that some people that you're coaching are saying, how do I get to the next position, right? How do I get promoted more quickly? What do you say to that? Is that even achievable?
My first question would be, well, tell me why that matters to you. Like, why do you think a promotion's going to be like the next big thing for you? And often they don't even have a good answer for that. Or they're like, well, I want to make more money. I'm like, okay, well, who doesn't? But what else?
I remember I remember the first time I said I want to be a manager to somebody, and they said, why? And I had no good answer.
Did you get parking space?
Well, it's not the fringe benefits, it's not the salary, it's not the control over people. All of these things, I'm too young at the time, and thinking that there was a career journey, the promotion. I want to be a director by the time of this age, or a VP at that age.
You probably felt like you needed to.
There was this cycle that I thought was a part of the transition, or the career path. So I think that's interesting from a coaching standpoint. So somebody's not saying, how do I become better at my current job, but how do I get the next job?
Yeah, be careful what you wish for sometimes, right?
Right. And it's weird from a career standpoint. We're all sort of baited by that, I think.
I think it's the corporate culture, right? Of they have to have that, like climbing the corporate ladder,
Right. Yeah.
like the carrot and the stick.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's it. Is this big structure, and if you join that structure, the idea is you want to progress within it. And
Yeah.
and one of the reasons I ended up being like an independent creative was because I that's what I thought I wanted, and then I realized immediately I was never going to be able to do that in that culture and bide my time and work my way up. So it was I just walked away. So, and I can understand why. I wish in some ways you get. I think some people are designed for those environments, and other people
I think
just
so.
can't do it.
I found them very difficult. Like I worked in big corporations. I was at Accenture, Scotiabank, and JD Irving Limited, and I don't know.
Big organizations.
Yeah, I'd always kind of get myself in trouble a little bit because I'd like make decisions and take things and run with them. And it's a different person is attracted to entrepreneurship. I think you want to make the rules and be. I guess, have more sway in the type of projects and clients you work with if you go out on your own.
And is there any particular client or story, without naming any names, where like a moment where you're really proud of like a transformation you brought through your coaching, or you've seen someone really like thrive and develop?
Yeah, the one that always comes to mind, there's so many of them, but the one that really sticks with me was a fella out of the States I was coaching on emotional regulation. So it was kind of funny because
This is anger management?
A little bit. Like his project team was not delivering, and he'd like go off the handle and, be swearing at them on team meetings, and then realize that probably isn't going to necessarily change their behavior. So he was coming to me to help, well, how do I stabilize that and regulate my emotions? But then at the end of the coaching, he said, Susan, what really was unexpected is now my relationships with my teenagers are much better because I've applied the same skill to my relationships with them. And he was tearing up when he was saying it. Like, it just made me feel good because to me, that's leadership. Like you can't isolate it. You're going to show up as a better person in all parts of your life.
That's amazing. So his career and family life improved simultaneously.
That's what he told me. I mean, I didn't validate with his teenage son, but he seemed like the type of person who's quite genuine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That must have felt really good.
It did feel good.
Which is, you touched on this early in the conversation that talked about a lot of what you do is improving communications. So leadership is really about being able to communicate and be able to understand. And it's difficult when you've got different people, different background, different objectives. And that was when you talked about, we've got a lack of trust within an organization.
Yeah.
And that's probably built a little bit around communication problems or challenges.
I think often it is, and it costs organizations a lot of money. Like a small to medium-sized businesses, hundreds of thousands of dollars is lost in miscommunication, like rework, confusion, lack of understanding roles and responsibilities. But another part, like I think of, if someone is let go at the senior leadership level, that creates distrust because sometimes you don't have complete transparency on why they were let go. Or if there's a reorganization of structure, like any type of change starts to create distrust if it's not managed properly and communication isn't in place. So it's not like, I think of it again like in a relationship when you're dating and wooing another person, like you're putting your best self forward, going on dates every week. You're like, okay, trust is built, and then you get married and you have kids, and then sometimes that pauses, right? And then the relationship deteriorates. It's no different at work if you're not showing up and building that trust and talking to people and connecting with them and putting that effort in. Trust is going to diminish as well. And when change is at play, you have to work extra hard to really, how are you feeling about this change? What's hard for you right now? What's going well? And really being deliberate about it.
Mm. That's a tough one because I'm trying to think of when we onboard somebody, the first 3 months are wonderful. It's a great honeymoon experience. People really enjoy it. And then things change a little bit, I think, which means that's where we get into trust issues. Are we supposed to keep the honeymoon period going inevitably? Forever?
I don't know. I'm looking through the window. They're nodding. They are. Our team is
nodding.
They want the honeymoon period indefinite.
We've got one team member. Their first job was actually doing a shoot down at a resort, and it was her wonderful first experience. And that was what her impression of the organization was: always going to be nice exotic travels at remote locations.
Never happened again.
Never happened again. Right?
We don't want to set the bar too high because we can only go down.
It must have felt like a literal honeymoon.
But there is a juggle in a lot of that. So even when you do an org change, and all of a sudden it's difficult to articulate the reasons why you're doing the org change and still have compassion and understanding, and back to that other individual that didn't care.
Yeah.
So I find if you're able to a lot of the times, though, when you do certain things, you can't share the full story. I'm not sure why.
I think you're right. But the problem is people fill in the gaps, right? They make up their own version. So even saying, I can't share all the details right now, but here's what I can share. And if it's built on that foundation of trust, people will, believe you. But just not sharing anything. Sometimes leaders do that, right? They're like, well, I don't have the information. What I'm going to say to them, that's not a good approach because people will fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Especially if they can see that person is stressed out. If they're carrying baggage and they're not sharing that baggage, then that can also kind of like give people suspicion.
I remember a leader I worked with years ago at a municipality in Ontario, and she had a lot of meetings because she was executive director, and she just had to use the bathroom one day. So she was rushing and averting eye contact. She didn't want to get in a conversation with anyone. She was telling me this at the end of the day for some reason. And people thought that there was going to be layoffs because she was avoiding them and rushing. She's like, I just had to use the friggin' bathroom.
It just shows how hyper aware people can be sometimes, like when they're around them. That's crazy.
Yeah, or actually hyper unaware in that scenario,
exactly.
Right? Because it's not true, but communication's so much not the words. It's so your tone, how you show up, the emotion that you show up, all of those energy.
And the fast walk you do.
Exactly.
I just have to go to the washroom, right? That's interesting.
So based on our conversation, one thing we ask our guests at the end is if they can give us like one tip or one exercise or piece of information that we can kind of take away with us today. Is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, no, thank you. We offer a free masterclass. It's on our website, powerupleadership.ca. The next one is on September 18th, next Thursday at 12 Atlantic time. And it's all about leadership effectiveness. So we share a few nuggets in terms of how do you increase your own leadership effectiveness. And there's a sneak peek to our public program, which is a 16-hour paid program on that same topic. So folks are welcome to go to powerupleadership.ca, sign up for the masterclass. We also have, it's on our website too, but it's our 30 favorite leadership books. So you can listen on Audible if you don't want to.
There's an audiobook, I'm in.
He's not in, actually. He lies to you.
I'll show you my Spotify playlist. Thank you very much.
Right?
Yeah. So we have a quick summary of what we think the 30 best leadership development books are because there's so many of them out there. Yeah.
The masterclass, who's the ideal client profile, I guess, for that class? Is it for entrepreneurs? Is it seasoned veterans? Is it new leaders?
People leaders. It could be a new people leader or someone that's looking just to be more effective in that space. So entrepreneurs, industry, just really about people leadership.
Perfect. So in the show notes, we'll put a link to that course as well as a link to your Audible playlist.
My Audible playlist, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
If you like Lord of the Rings, you'll love it. I'm joking. There's a few business books in there too. So.
Lord of the Rings. Oh man, I haven't read that yet. Yeah.
It's heavy, but it's a bit long, but it's good.
Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you coming in and having a conversation with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
The best place to find this podcast is wherever you find podcasts.
That's where I'd start.